I think that's been demonstrated tonight, and the commitment remains.
Can you talk about the split, the decision to really split access between Minneapolis and St. Paul, not just at the interstates and bridges, but even on the roads, and really travel between the two cities at all tonight?
Well, I think largely, certainly the freeways, the access stuff was really intended to be a means of kind of, I think, further advancing the curfews, number one. Number two, to prevent issues from popping up in terms of the easiest way to travel between the two cities. But obviously we did see groups that did try and leave Minneapolis and head into St. Paul. And it was the objective of Chief Axtell and St. Paul Police Department, along with the Joint Command that is operating the operation in Minneapolis, to keep that from happening. And so I think that's where you saw some of those limitations. The orders are in effect, and so as a result, that was the objective and remains until, again, there is a level of confidence that our communities are safe.
Can you describe that conflict at the bridge?
I don't know all of the details. Was here for a portion of that. A line was established. There was attempts to breach that line. That line was held, and in a positive sort of way. So I think that's really all the details I know. I don't know if there were arrests that were generated as a result of that or not.
Can you give us estimates for how many law enforcement / National Guard you had out on the street versus protesters last night, and how many law enforcement / National Guard versus protesters you had on the street tonight?
Well, I think in both instances, I think as the governor and General Jensen and Commissioner Harrington talked about earlier yesterday morning now, there was a substantial number. It was among the largest that has ever been seen in our state. At tonight's level of personnel that were activated and either were engaged in specific activities, protective activities at critical infrastructure or in Minneapolis, were wide scale, unprecedented. The exact numbers, I don't want to get into a lot of the details or where, but we're talking many thousands between law enforcement and Guard members, many thousands. We feel that was necessary in order to protect infrastructure and have set a standard that Minnesota expects relative to community safety.
And the night before, which I guess we're now, you know what I'm asking, night before, many thousands, or just it was obviously less?
There were thousands yesterday, now a night ago, but we also had a much larger crowd. Much larger.
Okay, and that's if you can do the crowd estimates.
Yeah. So the exact numbers I can't say, but I will say that when you look at even just the sense tonight around the 5th precinct, comparing that with last night, and I think as we talked about earlier, the order, the curfew that was put in place appears to have really made a difference, and there's just no doubt about that. We had incredible levels of compliance, I would say. And even many of those protesters who may have hung around near the 5th precinct to kind of see what was going to happen through the course of the night, we believe that many of them who just wanted to check it out ultimately did go home because they saw that this was not this was going to be a decisive and strong action. And certainly, the people that we're continuing to deal with are people who are more bent on creating disorder and problems in our city.
What have you learned as you're making more arrests and doing the mission, the operations today, about who these people are? Have you identified specific groups that are most involved here? What do we know about the out-of-state, in-state at this point? Is there any developments there?
So relative to the in-state, out-of-state, I don't have any information about that. Again, we'll have a better sense of that once the booking processes are completed. What we do know through a variety of sources, many of them things that you could see in just public shared information, posters that have been put up, that there are groups out there that are engaged in these activities, but oftentimes when they are debriefed or when they're talked to subsequent to arrest, they won't identify themselves as an affiliate of X group. So it's not as though we may ever know that for sure, but ultimately we do know that people who have strong affiliations with a variety of these groups, are out and about in our community. And maybe some of the very people that we continue to pursue throughout Minneapolis.
Commissioner, to kind of sum this up in some ways, is the success of tonight beyond even what you were expecting here, given it's 1:15 in the morning? Has it gone far better than you even anticipated it would with the greater manpower?
Yes, I believe that tonight we feel it went far better, and I think really two reasons. One, there was clarity, absolute fundamental clarity of mission. There was an overwhelming number of resources that were brought to bear, which obviously was critical. And third, and really I think critical, there was a tremendous level of community support for the curfew. As hard as that is to do in an open and civil society, there was incredible compliance with that. And I think that's a true testament to Minnesotans, to the people in those neighborhoods in particular that have been affected by this disorder and this lawlessness. I think a lot of credit is due them for their willingness to comply and place their trust in us, and I think that's one of the things that the governor and the mayors felt really strongly, that we needed to make sure that we could deliver. And I think we've set a stake in the ground, we've drawn the line, and we'll continue to do that until we feel confident that the city is safe and that normal policing operations can continue.
There was a lot of the curfew, though, was in place the night before as well. The two differences that stand out in my mind are the remarkable unified pleas by faith leaders, community leaders, in a very moving fashion, and then there were additional ones. Representative Omar had a 5:30 news conference, and then also this really dramatic shutting down of the links between the two cities. Has that ever happened before, where you shut down this much of the interstate system and the bridges, to the degree to which there's a lot of people in this room who are wondering if they could even get to Minneapolis? I mean, people really, after 7 o'clock, have been stuck in places.
Right. I do think it's unprecedented. But what happened in the Twin Cities here over the last 4 days, as well, has been unprecedented. And certainly we've talked about people have talked about the fact that outrage over what happened last Monday is understandable. But what happened since then, ultimately, I think has really been something that we needed to get control of. It's, as the governor and mayors talked about yesterday, while they amassed a large force to go out and address the problem the night before, that force was overwhelmed. And tonight that was not going to happen, and as of now has not happened, and we believe will not. And we're committed to stay in this until we're stable.
And how many more officers did you have on the streets this night versus last night?
We used some different tactics as well as an increase of officers. Exact number I don't know, but we're talking hundreds more from all over and the ability to respond. And so it was massive. The support provided to EMS, to fire, was enhanced and increased. So it was a comprehensive approach to thinking about what today was going to look like. And we wanted to send that message clearly. I think the support of the community and elected and faith leaders made a huge difference. And I think that those people in those neighborhoods that I think want to see justice done relative to the death of Mr. Floyd, and now they want to begin to rebuild their neighborhoods and all of the businesses and infrastructure that supports those neighborhoods.
You said that the mission was different tonight, and the governor said earlier tonight's going to be different. Can you just sum up what the mission was? What were the instructions to the National Guard and to law enforcement tonight?
Look, the governor's message prior to at the beginning of the evening to all of the rapid response teams that were put together, to the the commanders who oversaw the mobile field force, delivered from the governor through Commissioner Harrington and Colonel Langer, was that, look, this has to stop. This will stop. And it stops with us tonight. We draw the line. We're in this. We need to give these neighborhoods back to the people who live there. That was the message, and I expect you to do that humanely, but aggressively, because we need this to stop. And I think that was demonstrated tonight. And we look to seeing this continue, and ultimately having those neighborhoods back in the hands of their police department and, more importantly, those community members.
Should Minnesotans rest a little easier tonight?
Pardon me?
Should Minnesotans rest a little easier tonight?
Yeah, I think they should arrest a little easier tonight. I think we feel like we're in a good place. We are not out of the woods, as I've said. We believe that there is the potential for things to pop up, but we have resources out there that can respond to those and get on those things quickly. We will keep these forces in place up until the governor decides, based upon the input from Commissioner Harrington, from Minneapolis and St. Paul officials, and Colonel Langer. The governor will make decisions about when to begin to step this back.
Right, Commissioner, I've got to get you, sorry, one more.
Our service we saw, or fires were such a big issue last night or 2 nights ago. What are you seeing in terms of fires tonight, and what's helped most on that front?
Fire activity was lighter tonight. We did have a fire early on out on 35W, a vehicle. It was abandoned and on fire. That ended up, there were some small activities with some potentially Molotov cocktail types of things that were thrown, but we did not see any kind of large-scale fires. But we absolutely had plans for how we would respond to those to make sure that we got the right resources to those calls as needed as quickly as possible. And the same with EMS. We wanted to make sure that when people called, that there was somebody coming to help.
And Commissioner, I got to get you back to headquarters, so we're going to wrap there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Teddy, are you going to come back in a minute?
Are you coming back here? No. Okay. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
You too.
Is that a record for one question?
Is there a rally tomorrow night tomorrow at the Capitol?
I hope not. Are we here in St. Paul?
Here at St. Paul?
Okay.
What time?
This is recorded.
Is Mike still recording?
What's that?
So we want this card to take back for
No, if they
It's
inject
not supposed to.
We'll have Mike.
Oh,